Welcome to Deep Sleep Conspiracies, where the mysteries of the world unfold slowly, gently and deliberately, so you can drift into deep, restorative sleep. Tonight, we begin a journey through theories whispered in shadows and spoken in hushed tones, the kind that linger in the corners of your thoughts, just long enough to stir your curiosity before lulling you into silence. Before we begin, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. It's always fascinating to see how our minds connect across time zones and continents. Now, get comfortable, dim the lights, let your imagination relax, and let's begin. Hour. First tale tonight is inspired by one of the most secretive and studied government programs ever whispered about. MKUltra. You've probably heard the name before, perhaps in passing, in podcasts, in a movie, or deep within a late-night forum thread. But how much do you really know about what happened behind those classified walls? Let me tell you a story, slowly, one layer at a time, as if peeling back the veil on something not meant to be seen. It began, as many dark things do, under the guise of protection. The Cold War loomed like a shadow over the American psyche. Fear was currency, and in the dim corners of military intelligence, something strange took root. They called it Project MKUltra, a name that would later vanish from public documents, only to resurface like a ghost in declassified files. Officially, it was an investigation, a study in the boundaries of the human mind. But off the record, it was something else, hidden behind thick walls. In windowless rooms, across universities, prisons, and military hospitals, researchers, often unknowingly, carried out tests designed to break the human psyche, to erase memories, and perhaps to rebuild new personalities from scratch. They used LSD, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and even electroshock. Some subjects were volunteers, others had no idea they were part of anything at all. One name that surfaced again and again was Frank Olson, a scientist, a biochemist, and, as some believe, the first real victim of MK-Ultra. Olson had been working with the CIA on chemical warfare projects. He was brilliant, methodical, and troubled. One evening, during a retreat with colleagues, he was given LSD without his knowledge. Something changed after that night. His friends reported that Frank had grown paranoid, distrustful. He spoke of things he'd seen, tests that went too far, accidents that weren't accidents. Days later, he fell or was pushed from a hotel window in New York City. The official story was suicide, but those who knew him said otherwise. His death marked the beginning of decades of whispers about control, manipulation, and secret programs hiding in plain sight. The story of MKUltra doesn't start in a dark basement or inside a secret laboratory. It begins with fear. The Cold War had gripped the world. The United States, uneasy and alert, feared they were falling behind, not just in weapons, but in the unseen battlefield of the human mind. Whispers had surfaced, that the Soviets and Chinese had found ways to control people, extract secrets, and reprogram thoughts. So the CIA asked a question: could we do it too? In 1953, MKUltra was born. Its official goal: to explore mind control, interrogation techniques, and behavioral manipulation. But unofficially, many say it became something much darker. The project funded experiments in over 80 institutions, including hospitals, prisons, and even universities. But here's the unsettling part. Many of the subjects weren't volunteers. They were everyday people, patients seeking help, prisoners unaware of what they had signed up for, and even US citizens who simply trusted the wrong doctor. Substances like LSD were administered without consent. Some were kept in isolation for days. Others were subjected to hypnosis, sensory deprivation, or what they called psychic driving, repeating the same recorded message for hours, even days, until the mind surrendered. These weren't isolated incidents. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of experiments were carried out under the M-Culture umbrella. But the full truth, it's hard to know. You see, in 1973, as pressure from journalists and investigations started to build, the CIA destroyed most of the records. Only a small portion of the documents survived, and from those we got a glimpse, a sliver, of what might have been. There was a doctor, Sidney Gottlieb. They called him the Black Sorcerer behind closed doors, not because he was a villain in the traditional sense, but because his experiments, his interests, danced on the edge of science and something far more unnatural. He wasn't interested in just drugs. He wanted to know how to erase a person's memory, how to wipe their identity clean, and then how to write a new one. Can a human mind be rewritten like a book? That was his question. And so, in padded rooms, with blinking lights and echoing hallways, patients were tested, pushed, broken. Some were fed massive doses of LSD for weeks on end. Others were placed in sensory isolation, white walls, no light, no sound, just their breath and their thoughts, slowly unraveling. And yet, outside those walls, everything seemed normal. Doctors went to work. Students walked to class. The world kept spinning, unaware that beneath the surface, something deeply disturbing was unfolding. But the conspiracy doesn't end there, you see. M-Culture wasn't just about experiments. Some believe it was the beginning of something much bigger, a blueprint, a prototype. What if M-Culture was only the first draft of modern psychological manipulation? Some whistleblowers, like former CIA employee Frank Olson, tried to speak out. Olson died mysteriously in 1953, after allegedly being drugged without his knowledge. They said he jumped out of a 13th-story window. But decades later, forensic investigations suggested he may have been pushed. His family was silenced. Settlements were paid. Files were closed. But the questions never stopped. Were there other victims? Are there still M-Culture programs running? Today, under a different name. Mind control, behavior manipulation, media influence. Some believe it never ended, just evolvedso. Now, when you hear stories of unexplained behavior, when a person commits a strange act and says, "I don't remember doing it," when a public figure seems to shift their personality overnight, some wonder, is it just coincidence? Or is there still a ghost of M-Culture whispering through the cracks? Let that thought settle. Not in fear, but as a gentle fog, a mystery that lingers just at the edge of sleep. Now breathe in and out, and when you're ready, we'll explore the next mystery together. Asterisk, asterisk, our next tale takes us into a stranger, quieter place. A place you visit every day. A place that looks familiar, but if you pay close attention, something might feel off. It's called the dead internet. Theory, at first, it sounds absurd. The idea that most of the internet today isn't real. That the majority of content you see, comments, tweets, reviews, posts, are not created by real people, but by bots, by algorithms, by something else. The theory goes like this. Around 2016, maybe even earlier, something shifted. The vibrant chaos of the early internet, where people expressed raw thoughts, weird ideas, and unpredictable conversations, started to disappear in its place. Repetition, sameness, content that feels like it's made by a machine, because maybe it is. Think about it. Have you ever scrolled through comments that all say the same thing? Watched dozens of identical videos, different faces, but the same phrases? Have you noticed how the internet started to feel like an echo chamber? Some believe this isn't just a side effect of tech. They think it's by design. A system run quietly in the background, pumping out synthetic content to shape public opinion, drown out dissent, and control the narrative. They call it the dead internet, because the human voices are fading, replaced by ghosts made of code. But here's where it gets even more chilling. The theory suggests that many of the people you argue with online don't exist. They're bots trained to provoke you, nudge your thoughts, make you feel outnumbered or insecure. They don't sleep, they don't rest, they just post endlessly. And it's not just social media. Some believe entire forums, websites, and even comment sections on major platforms are seeded with AI-generated content, designed to simulate engagement, to keep you scrolling, clicking, obeying. Now, of course, critics call this ridiculous. They say, there are millions of users online. Of course, the internet is alive. But that's the thing about this theory. It doesn't claim that everyone is fake. Only enough to shift the tide. Just a few well-placed bots, a few synthetic influencers, a few generated news stories, enough to steer the narrative without anyone noticing. And if no one notices, does it matter whether it's true, or is that the whole point? Asterisk, asterisk, as you relax. Let that thought simmer quietly. Tomorrow, you'll open your phone, scroll through your feed, and you might wonder, who posted that comment? Who really liked that video? Is it someone like you? Or is it just noise in the machine? Asterisk, asterisk, as you relax. Let that thought simmer quietly. Tomorrow, you'll open your phone, scroll through your feed, and you might wonder, who posted that comment? Who really liked that video? Is it someone like you? Or is it just noise in the machine? Imagine for a moment that reality is thinner than you think. That the walls separating our world from something else, something quieter, emptier, aren't as solid as they seem. That with the wrong step, at the wrong time, in the wrong place, ... you could slip through. That's what the backrooms are. A concept, a theory, a shared hallucination, depending on who you ask. But for some, it's more than fiction. The backrooms are said to be an endless, liminal space that exists just beneath reality. Picture a maze of yellow-tinted office rooms, stale carpet, buzzing fluorescent lights, and an overwhelming sense of abandonment. There's no furniture, no windows, just room after room after room. The walls are slightly off color, the floor feels damp, and the air is thick with mold and memory. Those who claim to have not slipped into the back rooms often describe the same sensation: a fall, a glitch, a sudden shift in the environment. 1 second, they're walking down a hallway. The next, they're somewhere else, surrounded by the soft hum of ceiling lights and the distant echo of something moving. Asterisk, asterisk. The term knockclip comes from video games, when the player moves through solid walls, through glitches in the system. But the theory here is that real life has its own glitches. And if you move just right, or if reality shifts around you, you can pass through, into the back rooms. Some believe it's a government-constructed, abandoned facility accidentally left open to the public through reality's cracks. Others think it's older, much older, a layer beneath reality that was never meant to be seen. The earliest mention of the back rooms traces back to an anonymous post on an internet forum in 2019. Just a single image. Yellow walls, damp carpet, no windows. The caption simply read, "If you're not careful and not clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the back rooms." The image went viral. People reported dreams of similar places. Vague memories, déjà vu. Some were convinced they'd seen it before, in nightmares, in forgotten office buildings, or in their childhood homes. It felt familiar, too familiar, as if it was a memory that didn't belong to them. That's what makes the back rooms so unsettling. Not the monsters, not the isolation, but the eerie sense of déjà vu. Like you've been there before, like you never left. Different levels are said to exist. Level 0 is the entrance, the classic yellow room with buzzing lights. Level 1 gets darker, stranger. The layout shifts. Doors lead to nowhere. The carpet is stained. The lights flicker. You begin to feel watched. Level 2 is industrial. Pipes run along the ceilings. Steam hisses. In the distance. Some levels are infinite. Others collapse in on themselves. Time moves differently here. Some people claim they spent hours, only to return and find that days had passed. Others say they were gone for weeks, and came back a moment later, and some never come back at all. There are reports, though never verified, of strange creatures in the back rooms. Not monsters, exactly, but distortions, shadows, shapes that aren't quite right, things that move just out of view, entities that don't chase but observe, the kind of presence you feel more than see, the kind of fear that doesn't scream. It whispers. What's even stranger is how these descriptions, coming from different people across the internet, all seem to align. The same yellow walls, the same hum, the same feeling of being trapped somewhere forgotten by the world. Some theorists suggest the back rooms are a memory space, an echo of places we've all passed through. Abandoned office buildings, school, hallways, hospital waiting rooms, places we don't remember until we see them again, and suddenly feel sick. There are even claims that dreams of the back rooms are increasing, that people who've never heard of the theory are waking up in cold sweats, describing the same visuals, as if the back rooms are leaking into our collective subconscious, or worse, trying to pull us in. A popular theory is that the back rooms are a failsafe, that when reality breaks, the human mind creates a placeholder, a safe mode, like a computer. Error screen. You're not supposed to be there. You're not supposed to see it. But once you do, it's too late. No one knows how to escape the back rooms. Some say you have to keep moving. Others say stand perfectly still and wait for the glitch to reverse itself. Most stories end the same way: cut off, incomplete, a final journal entry, a single photo, and then silence, as if the writer was swallowed by the place itself. So the next time you enter a stairwell and the door behind you disappears, or when the lights flicker in an empty hallway and you feel a pull in your chest, take a deep breath. Don't run. Don't scream. Just listen. Do you hear it? The soft hum of fluorescent lights. That's how it begins. Asterisk, asterisk, the unsettling part about the back rooms is not just the image, not just the endless yellow hallways, but the way it touches something deep inside the human mind. Everyone who sees the picture feels the same thing. They recognize it. They shouldn't, but they do. Psychologists who've studied the phenomenon say the back rooms trigger what's called liminal space anxiety, the unease we feel in places that are between purposes, between realities, hallways that lead nowhere, rooms without windows, staircases that stop abruptly. These spaces exist in our world, but they feel wrong. They feel abandoned, even when they are not. The back rooms amplify this feeling into infinity. And for some, that infinity is not metaphorical. There are stories scattered across forums of people who disappeared for hours, days, sometimes longer, and returned describing spaces eerily similar to the back rooms. They spoke of stale air, buzzing lights, and the overwhelming stench of mildew. They said time passed differently, that sleep didn't feel restful, that hunger and thirst were muted but never gone. The back rooms, they said, wanted you to stay. The most disturbing of these accounts come from supposed urban explorers, people who dedicate themselves to breaking into abandoned buildings. One described falling through rotten flooring in an empty office complex. He didn't hit the ground. He said the air itself seemed to shift around him, like sliding through water, and when he opened his eyes, he was standing in a yellow corridor. He wandered for what he thought was an hour, until his flashlight batteries gave out. Then, in the darkness, he heard footsteps that didn't belong to him. Slow, heavy, deliberate. He panicked, closed his eyes, and when he opened them, again, he was back on the floor of the real building, surrounded by his friends who swore he had only been gone for seconds. He never returned to urban exploration. He said the sound of fluorescent lights still follows him when he closes his eyes at night. Internet communities have since expanded the mythos into levels, sub-levels, and entities, but the central terror remains the same, that the back are real and that they are accessible through glitches in our world. Some believe the government is aware of these spaces and has tried to map them. Whistleblowers, always anonymous and always unverifiable, claim there are classified operations where soldiers are sent into backrooms-like environments, tasked with retrieving samples of air, materials, or recordings of the entities that wander there. If true, these programs are buried deep, far from the public eye. But if false, why do so many people, from different places, describe the same details? The damp carpet, the faint buzzing, the endless rooms. There are theories, too, that the back rooms are not separate from us at all. Instead, they might be a reflection of our subconscious, a collective dream we've all touched at, one point or another, like a memory from childhood that doesn't belong to you, but to everyone. Dreams of yellow halls, empty offices, and waiting rooms appear across cultures, across time. Could it be that the backrooms are an archetype, a place encoded in the human mind, waiting to surface when conditions are right? Or are they a true physical location, bleeding into our world when reality falters? Then there's the technological angle. Some argue the backrooms are digital constructs, not physical ones. Simulations created by artificial intelligence, leaked into our perception by accident or by design. The image that started it all, the famous yellow hallway, feels like a photograph, but what if it wasn't? What if it was generated, placed online to test human reaction? If so, the reaction worked. Millions of people looked at it and felt the same thing. Recognition, fear, discomfort perhaps. The back rooms are not just a place you stumble into, but a place that wants to be remembered. Skeptics dismiss it all as creepypasta, a modern urban legend born on internet forums. But even they admit something strange happens when the back rooms are discussed. People share dreams, memories, and fragments of stories that line up too neatly to ignore. A myth shouldn't make so many people shiver in the same way. A story shouldn't feel like a memory, and yet the back rooms do so. The next time you find yourself alone in a place that feels wrong, a deserted office at night, a long, empty corridor in a hotel, a parking garage that seems too quiet, listen carefully. If the hum of the lights grows louder, if the walls seem to tilt, if your heart begins to race without reason, you might want to turn back. Or maybe it's already too late. Because once you see the back rooms, once you recognize them, some say the connection never goes away. It waits, it watches, and it pulls, quietly, patiently, until the next time you step just a little too far, and reality slips. Denver International Airport looks, at first glance, like just another airport. Travelers rushing, planes taking off, announcements echoing through the terminals. But for years, whispers have clung to this place like fog, turning what should be a hub of travel into one of America's most enduring modern mysteries. It begins with its sheer size. Denver International Airport is massive, over 50 square miles, far larger than any other airport in the United States. Too large, some say, for the traffic it handles. Hidden beneath its runways and terminals, rumors claim, are vast underground facilities. Officially, these tunnels exist for baggage transport, shuttles, and maintenance. But conspiracy theorists point out that the blueprints don't always match what was built, and entire sections remain sealed off, inaccessible to the public. Some believe these underground spaces are bunkers, designed to house government elites during an apocalyptic event. Others suggest they are part of a secret military installation, connected to the infamous Cheyenne Mountain complex by miles of subterranean passageways. Whatever their true purpose, the secrecy fuels suspicion. Then there's the art. Murals stretch across the walls of Denver's terminals, vibrant, surreal, and to some, deeply unsettling. One depicts soldiers in gas masks, carrying weapons, as children huddle together in fear. Another shows animals caged, forests burning, and a looming figure watching over it all. While the artists explained these works as symbolic, representing humanity's struggle for peace and unity, theorists see something else: prophecy, warnings, or even blueprints of a future being engineered behind the scenes. The imagery of destruction, followed by harmony, has been interpreted as a roadmap for the so-called New World Order, chaos unleashed to justify the birth of a single global government. To those who walk by quickly, it's just strange art. But to those who stop and look closely, it feels like something more, as if the airport itself is trying to tell a story. And then, of course, there's the statue. The towering blue Mustang, its eyes glowing red, standing tall outside the airport. Officially, it's called Blue Mustang. Locals, however, gave it another name, Lucifer. The horse has a dark history. During its construction, a piece of the statue fell, killing its creator, sculptor Luz Jimenez. Since then, Lucifer has stood guard over the airport, its demonic eyes watching travelers as they arrive and depart. For some, it's just an eerie coincidence. For others, It's a sign, a guardian of the secrets buried below. Adding fuel to the mystery are the plaques scattered throughout the airport, bearing references to the New World Airport Commission. The strange part, no such organization exists. Officially, it was a one-time committee formed for the airport's dedication ceremony. But theorists aren't convinced. They link the name to the New World Order, interpreting the plaques as breadcrumbs left in plain sight. Clues for those who know how to look. The design of the airport itself has raised questions. Its peaked roof, meant to resemble snowy mountains, or Native American teepees, has been said to symbolize tents in concentration camps. Its runways, when viewed from above, are accused of forming the shape of a swastika. Architects deny this, attributing the shape to efficiency and crosswinds. But to the suspicious mind, coincidence piles upon coincidence until it no longer feels accidental. Stories persist of strange sounds in the tunnels, unmarked doors, and guards who patrol with more vigilance than seems necessary. Employees whisper of places they are told never to go, corridors that lead nowhere, and cameras watching every step. Some even claim that deep below, beyond the visible tunnels, lie vast chambers, bunkers capable of holding tens of thousands, for whom no one knows. But theories range from political elites to shadow governments, to non-human entities altogether. What makes the Denver airport conspiracy so enduring is not that any one piece of evidence is definitive. It's the accumulation. A giant airport, larger than necessary, bizarre artwork with violent themes, statues that kill their creators, plaques referencing shadowy organizations, and underground facilities sealed away from public eyes. Each detail, on its own, can be explained away, but together they form a picture that lingers in the mind, a picture that whispers of control, secrecy, and a future already decided. So the next time you pass through Denver International, take a look around, watch the murals, glance at the horse, and when you see a sign pointing to restricted access, you might wonder what lies beneath your feet. A baggage tunnel, or something much deeper. Asterisk, asterisk, some researchers point to the strange layout of the underground tunnels, noting that their size and depth go far beyond what would be necessary for ordinary airport functions. Engineers have commented that the amount of concrete poured into the project was far greater than typical, suggesting reinforced structures designed for long-term habitation. Why would an airport need facilities capable of surviving catastrophe? One theory is that the tunnels are part of a global network, linked by high-speed underground trains, allowing the rapid relocation of elites during crises. In this version of the story, Denver Airport is not just an airport, it is a hub, a central node in a worldwide survival system designed not for the public, but for the few chosen to endure. And if that is true, then the cheerful artwork, the statues, and the odd plaques scattered across the terminals take on a more sinister meaning. They are not decorations, but symbols, mocking reminders of who truly controls the space. Travelers have reported odd experiences as well. Stories circulate of locked doors in public corridors, marked only with simple codes and numbers that lead to nowhere obvious. Some claim to have seen guards appear suddenly, quietly steering curious individuals away from certain sections. One man described finding himself in a stairwell that should have led to a maintenance area, only to be stopped by a pair of uniformed officers who told him firmly that he had lost his way. The unsettling part: he swore he had seen no security cameras, no visible reason for anyone to know where he was. How did they appear so quickly? He wondered whether he had accidentally stepped close to something he was never meant to see. Even stranger are the symbols hidden in plain sight. The murals, already controversial, contain small details, many overlooked letters, numbers, and patterns that conspiracy theorists argue resemble Masonic symbols, alchemical codes, and references to apocalyptic events. One figure wears what appears to be a Nazi-style uniform, holding a weapon as flames rage behind him. Another panel shows children of many nations gathered around a glowing plant, while doves soar into a bright sky. Critics dismiss these interpretations as paranoia, pointing to the artist's stated intention of representing humanity's struggle from war to peace. But in the eyes of the suspicious, it reads differently. First, destruction, then control, and finally, a carefully managed new order. To them, it is not art, it is instruction. The airport's connections to secret societies are perhaps the most enduring part of the conspiracy. The Freemasons are frequently mentioned, largely due to the dedication stone in the main terminal. Etched into the granite is the Masonic square and compass, along with a reference to the mysterious New World. Airport Commission. Skeptics say this was simply ceremonial, acknowledging local Masonic lodges that contributed to the project. But theorists argue that the use of such symbols is not accidental. Why create a commission with a name so eerily reminiscent of the New World Order? Why place these plaques in prominent view where millions pass by each year? Some say it is because those in power enjoy hiding in plain sight, turning the airport into a kind of open-air riddle for those with the eyes to see. And then there are the rumors of experiments. Some whisper that deep within the restricted zones, genetic research is conducted in laboratories far from oversight. Others claim that aircraft land on hidden runways at night, bringing cargo not listed on any manifest, disappearing into the tunnels below. A few even insist that non-human entities have been seen moving in the shadows, figures too tall, with movements too strange to belong to ordinary staff. Of course, none of this has ever been proven, yet the rumors persist, fueled by a steady drip of anecdotes from employees who leave the airport shaken, unwilling to speak openly but hinting at things they can't talk about. The psychology of the place itself also plays a role. Many travelers report a strange heaviness when arriving at Denver International. Some say the ceilings feel oppressively high, the spaces disorienting, the layout confusing on purpose. Wayfinding signs appear and disappear in odd places, leaving first-time visitors wandering through long, empty corridors. Could this be poor design, or is it intentional, meant to instill a subtle unease, a reminder that the traveler is not in control? In psychological warfare, environment matters. Confusion, disorientation, even a hint of fear, these things break down resistance. If the airport was designed with these principles in mind, then it is not just a transportation hub. It is a psychological tool. Asterisk. Skeptics argue that all of this is nothing more than coincidence, overactive imaginations fueled by internet forums and YouTube videos. Airports, after all, are complicated places. They require unusual design, strange construction methods, and sometimes unsettling art. But the more you look at Denver International, the harder it becomes to dismiss the patterns. Why so much secrecy about the tunnels? Why artwork so consistently violent and apocalyptic? Why plaques honoring organizations that do not exist? And why has this airport, more than any other in the world, become the focus of so many whispered fears. In the end, Denver International Airport remains what it has always been, a gateway. For most, it is just the start or end of a journey, but for those who believe, it is also a symbol, a gateway to something hidden, something vast, something waiting beneath the surface of everyday life. The truth may never be confirmed, and perhaps that is the point. Mystery thrives where answers are scarce, secrets endure where questions multiply. And so the airport continues its work, day after day, as thousands pass through, never realizing that above their heads and beneath their feet, the future may already be decided. Asterisk, asterisk, the moon landing hoax theory doesn't begin with rockets or astronauts. It begins with television. On July 20th, 1969, hundreds of millions of people gathered around glowing screens, their living rooms turned into tiny observatories. Grainy images flickered through the atmosphere, white shapes against a black sky, while a crackling voice announced one small step and one giant leap. For many, it was a moment of triumph. For others, it was a question mark that never stopped growing. If a story is powerful enough, the theory suggests, it can become a substitute for reality. And the most powerful stories are told on TV. That's where the doubts take root, in the broadcast itself, in the way the light fell, in the way the shadows stretched, in the way silence traveled across a world supposedly without air. If you slow the tape, if you freeze the frame, the details start to speak. Or so the believers say. They talk about the flag first. In the video, it looks as if the flag ripples slightly when it's planted, as if wind were pushing fabric that should have hung still in a vacuum. NASA explained the motion as inertia, the flag jostled by the astronaut's hands and the tension rod holding its top edge. But to those who were already skeptical, the ripple was a whisper. Not space, a stage. Not the moon, a room. Then there are the shadows. In some photographs, the shadows cast by rocks and equipment appear to run in different directions, as if multiple light sources illuminated the scene. The sun, however, should be the only lamp on the lunar surface. Skeptics claim this inconsistency reveals studio lighting, carefully placed spotlights to fake the look of daylight on a dusty set. The counter-argument points to uneven terrain, and the way perspective can trick the eyeshadows bending along slopes and ridges, diverging because the ground itself is imperfect, and yet the feeling persists. A set is designed to look natural. What if nature, in those frames, is designed to look like a set? That's the uncomfortable flip of the theory. Once the seed of doubt is planted, even logic feels like part of the script. You can explain away a shadow, but can you explain away the way the scene makes you feel? The crosshairs are another point of contention. In several lunar photographs, small reticles from the camera's focusing screen appear to be behind certain objects, not over them, vanishing into white areas, as if the image had been composited. To the believer, this is a smoking gun. Objects added later, a collage masquerading as a moment. Photographic experts argue that the bright, reflective surfaces of the moon's equipment can bloom, washing out thin black lines and making them seem to slip behind the subject. Blooming is common in high-contrast photography, but to minds tuned to coincidence, blooming looks like erasing. It's not proof, it's a feeling, a suspicion that refuses to be filed away, beyond the images. The theory reaches for the heavens and falls into the Van Allen belts, regions of charged particles trapped by Earth's magnetic field. Believers ask how astronauts passed through such radiation unharmed with only aluminum and faith to protect them. Engineers respond with dose calculations, carefully timed trajectories, and the shielding that, while minimal by modern standards, was sufficient for short exposure. The numbers say it's fine. The theory says numbers are fences built after the land was taken. And when numbers speak louder than memory, stories grow teeth. They bite down on gaps, on lost tapes, on missing blueprints, on anything misfiled and mislabeled by the relentless passage of time. Those tapes another lingering thread. Much later, it was revealed that some of the original slow-scan telemetry recordings were not preserved as expected. In a world that wants relics, this absence is too convenient, too tailored to the skeptical heart. NASA stated the tapes were likely recorded over during a period of media scarcity. The content preserved in widely distributed broadcast copies even as the raw originals were reused. The official explanation addresses logistics. The theory sees ritual an erasure not of data, but of doubt's antidote. And it doesn't help that decades blur motives. What looks like bureaucracy to one generation feels like concealment to the next. The set design arguments travel further into the weeds of cinema. They speak of front projection and retro-reflective screens, of how a skilled filmmaker could simulate the harsh highlights and deep shadows of an airless world. They mention the way dust billows or doesn't when boots touch ground, the arcs it draws, the curves it refuses, the stubborn grace of regolith in low gravity. They say someone who understood light as language could write a story so convincing that even scientists would nod along. And inevitably, a familiar name surfaces in whispers. A director known for meticulous frames and impossible ambitions. It's not that the theory needs him, it's that myths need a conductor. The moon is a silent stage. A director gives it a voice, but there's a harder edge to the narrative. Motive, why fake it at all? The context answers with a kind of cold arithmetic. In the late 1960s, the space race had become a proxy for ideology. To land on the moon was to plant a flag in the future and claim it for your system. Deadlines loomed, budgets soared. The world watched, and the camera watched, the world watching. The theory suggests that at some point, with so much at stake, a safety net was built, a contingency plan. If reality failed, the story would not. Perhaps the landing was real, but certain images were massaged for clarity. Perhaps the landing was delayed, and footage was prepared just in case. The beauty of a contingency is that it never needs to be proved. It only needs to exist long enough to ease the fear of failure, and still, the evidence for reality piles higher. Retroreflectors on the lunar surface, hit by lasers, independent. Tracking by observatories, samples of rock with signatures that match nothing on Earth. Engineering that spawned entire industries in its wake. The theory doesn't refute these, it absorbs them. It says reflectors can be placed by unmanned craft, that tracking can be coordinated, that rocks can be explained by unknowns. This is the gravity of doubt. Once you enter its field, every orbit becomes a circle. The point is not to land, it is to keep circling, to stay in motion. Doubt is its own propulsion. Meanwhile, tiny anomalies keep breathing. Why do some frames feel perfectly composed, as if by a photographer with time and tripod on a world where time and tripods are luxuries? Why do the stars refuse to appear in the sky, a darkness empty of points? Experts note that the exposure settings needed to capture bright lit surfaces would blow out faint stars. That's the technical answer. The narrative answer is simpler. A painted backdrop rarely bothers with details it doesn't need. It is too neat to clean. It simplifies because it must. The human mind, catching a glimpse of neatness where chaos is expected, convinces itself that neatness is a clue. The suits, the boots, the dust each has its sub-theory. Seal, integrity, joint flexibility, the way footprints retain shape in an environment without moisture. Engineers explain micrometeorite gardening and electrostatic cohesion. The theory counters with studio sand mixtures, designed to hold their form under carefully managed humidity. Back and forth it goes, a quiet metronome in the dark. Those who want to sleep let the ticking become distant, a sound beyond the walls. Those who want to argue stare at the ceiling and count inconsistencies instead of sheep. Then there is the human element: eyes behind visors, voices beneath static. Astronauts trained to withstand pressure, isolation, and the knowledge that a single mistake could end everything. Believers sometimes freeze frames of reflections on helmet visors, searching for the silhouette of a studio light, a boom arm, a square corner that shouldn't be there. They listen for slips in interviews, for long pauses in answers, for laughter that lands a fraction of a second too late. To them, the truth leaks sideways through body language and fatigue. To others, those same pauses are reverence, the weight of talking about something that changed the scale of human life. Asterisk. In the end, the moon landing hoax theory is not a puzzle to be solved so much as a mirror for the age that birthed it. We live in a time when images define memory and memory defines truth. When institutions rise and fall on the strength of their narratives, when trust is a currency traded at a loss. The moon is far, but television is close. We remember what we saw more vividly than what was, and so the theory endures, not because it wins, but because it refuses to stop asking. Its questions are simple and inexhaustible. Do you believe what you were told? Do you trust the frame? Do you trust the hand that holds the camera? Close your eyes now and imagine the surface again. The stark horizon, the boot prints leading away from the lander, the distant curve of Earth, fragile and blue. Whether you see a set or a world, a lamp or a sun, matters less than the way your chest rises and falls as the scene settles. The story has taken you there, either to a soundstage disguised as the sky, or to the sky disguised as a soundstage. Either way, you are lighter now, as if gravity has paused to catch its breath. And somewhere, beyond the glass of memory, a flag holds its pose motionless in a vacuum, or trembling in a studio, and the silence keeps time. When you wake, the arguments will still be there, neatly folded like mission checklists. The math will still be solid. The pictures will still be debated. But for now, let the moon be a quiet place. Let it recede to its gentle distance, a coin of light slipping behind the curtains. There will be other theories, other corridors of thought, other rooms in which the lights hum softly and the floor smells faintly of dust. We will keep walking, one careful step at a time. As the night lowers its visor and the world drifts a little farther away, asterisk, asterisk, on the far end of Long Island, hidden among thick forests and old military fencing, lies Camp Hero, a decommissioned Air Force base with cracked concrete, rusted gates, and one looming structure that dominates the landscape. A massive radar dish, frozen in place, pointed eternally at the horizon. To most, it's just another relic of the Cold War, abandoned and forgotten. But to those who believe, It is the epicenter of one of the strangest and most chilling experiments in American history. They call it the Montauk Project. The whispers began in the 1980s, surfacing from the testimony of men who claimed to have been part of something extraordinary or horrifying. According to these accounts, the Montauk Project was a continuation of MKUltra, expanding far beyond mind control into realms that sound like science fiction, psychic warfare, time travel, and interdimensional contact. The base, they said, was not abandoned at all, but alive with secret operations hidden from the public eye. One man, Preston Nichols, claimed he had recovered fragmented memories of working at Montauk. He spoke of experiments involving electromagnetic fields designed to amplify psychic abilities. The radar dish, towering above the trees, was supposedly repurposed into a transmitter, beaming thoughts, emotions, and even commands into the minds of those nearby. Nichols described subjects, many of them children, being trained as psychic soldiers, taught to project images, influence thoughts, and open gateways to other places and times. The most famous of these subjects was said to be the Montauk boy, a child named Duncan Cameron. According to the story, Duncan's abilities were unparalleled. With the machinery of the base amplifying his mind, he could manifest objects out of thin air, summon visions, and even tear holes in reality. One day, they say, Duncan thought of a monster, and the creature appeared. It rampaged through the underground base, smashing equipment, destroying labs, and forcing the project to shut down. Whether metaphor or memory, the tale spread like wildfire through conspiracy circles. But the rumors didn't stop there. Some accounts suggest the Montauk Project successfully experimented with time travel. Test subjects were sent through portals created by vast electromagnetic fields, stepping into tunnels that led to other eras. Soldiers walked into the vortex and emerged in the past, or in futures that had not yet come to pass. There were even claims of links to the infamous Philadelphia experiment of 1943, when the USS Eldridge allegedly disappeared from sight during a Navy test and reappeared miles away. Its crew fused with the ship's steel, according to Montauk lore. The two projects were connected, both attempts to bend reality itself. Skeptics, of course, dismiss these stories as fabrications, pointing out the lack of hard evidence. They say Nichols and others invented their memories, blending science fiction with government secrecy to create a compelling myth. Yet the power of the Montauk Project lies not in proof, but in possibility. Military bases are secretive by nature. Experiments in psychology and physics did occur during the Cold War. If MKUltra was real, and it was, then how far might the government have gone in search of ultimate control? Visitors to Camp Hero report strange feelings even today. Some describe dizziness, disorientation, or overwhelming sadness when standing near the radar tower. Others claim electronic devices behave erratically, compasses spinning, batteries draining without explanation. Local legends tell of screams heard late at night, echoing from the sealed bunkers underground. The fences are rusted, the buildings abandoned, but the sense of presence lingers, as if the past refuses to let go. What makes the Montauk story endure is how easily it blends into the larger landscape of conspiracy. Underground bases, psychic warfare, lost time, aliens even, for some versions, suggest the project involved contact with non-human intelligences, entities who guided the research or manipulated it for their own purposes. It is a story with endless branches, each one stranger than the last, and each impossible to fully disprove. Perhaps that's why it found new life in fiction. Stories of Montauk inspired television, books, and movies. A certain series, set in a small town plagued by monsters from another dimension, was said to have been based on early drafts of the Montauk Project. The names were changed, the setting moved, but the seed remained the same. An experiment gone wrong. A child with impossible powers, and a base where doors open to places no human should ever see. As you lie here listening, you might imagine the radar dish turning once more, humming with invisible energy. You might picture the corridors beneath the base, lined with flickering lights and sealed doors, each holding a secret experiment lost to time. Maybe you hear the faint echo of voices, scientists arguing, children crying, machines pulsing. Or maybe it's only the wind brushing through broken windows, the forest reclaiming steel and stone. The line between memory and myth is thin, and Camp Hero sits precisely on that line. In the end, the Montauk Project may be nothing more than stories, or it may be a glimpse at how far ambition can stretch when hidden from public view. Time machines, psychic soldiers, monsters born from imagination, they all sound impossible. But so did the idea of secret mind control experiments, until MKUltra was declassified. The question is not whether Montauk happened exactly as told. The question is whether, somewhere, in some hidden place, experiments like it are still happening. Now so when you see that abandoned radar tower on the horizon, its dish pointed forever at the sky, ask yourself, what signals did it really send? What doors did it open? And if those doors never closed, then perhaps, even tonight, something is still slipping through. Asterisk, asterisk, for centuries. People have looked at mountains, oceans, and the vast sky above, and wondered about what lies beneath. The earth, we're taught, is solid, a sphere of rock, mantle, and molten core. Yet for just as long, there have been whispers of another truth, that the earth is not solid at all, but hollow, with vast chambers and even entire civilizations hidden within. The hollow earth theory is one of those stories that refuses to die, evolving with every generation, fed by explorers, mystics, and conspiracy theorists who look at the ground beneath their feet and see not stone but doors. The earliest roots of the hollow earth idea can be traced back to ancient myths. In Tibetan lore, there is Shambhala, a hidden kingdom beneath the mountains, home to enlightened beings. Native American traditions speak of ancestors who emerged from worlds below to live on the surface. Even in Norse mythology, there are references to vast underworlds filled with realms of gods and giants. Myths are not proof, but they are patterns. And they suggest that across cultures, the notion of hidden lands beneath the Earth's crust has always haunted the human imagination. In the 17th century, a scientist named Edmund Halley, the same Halley who gave his name to the famous comet, suggested the Earth might be composed of multiple concentric shells, like layers of an onion, with vast interior spaces glowing faintly with light. He was not the last man of science to entertain the idea. Over the next centuries, various thinkers proposed versions of the hollow Earth, some with entrances at the poles, others with subterranean suns lighting vast inner continents. The idea grew not weaker but stronger, fueled by explorers' accounts of strange phenomena near the Arctic and Antarctic, reports of warm currents where there should be only ice, of migratory birds flying north in winter instead of south, of compass readings going wild at certain latitudes. To the believers, these were not accidents, but clues. One of the most famous figures in Hollow Earth lore is Admiral Richard E. Byrd, an American explorer who led expeditions to the polar regions in the early 20th century. According to diaries that surfaced later, though their authenticity has been widely disputed, Byrd described flying into a hidden world beyond the North Pole. He wrote of lush valleys, giant animals, and advanced beings who communicated telepathically, warning humanity about its destructive path. The official record of Byrd's expeditions makes no mention of this, but in the conspiracy world, his alleged account is considered a cornerstone, the testimony of a decorated admiral who had seen what most would never believe. Skeptics dismiss these diaries as forgeries, works of imagination grafted onto Byrd's name after his death. But still, the questions linger. Why do so many expeditions near the poles report strange anomalies? Why do satellite images sometimes blur or censor the exact tips of the Earth? And why has Antarctica, vast, frozen, and seemingly empty, been the subject of so much geopolitical tension, with treaties forbidding large-scale exploration or settlement? To some, it looks like the governments of the world know something they cannot allow ordinary people to discover. The hollow Earth is not always described as empty caverns. Some accounts say there is a central sun, a glowing orb, that warms in a continent where advanced civilizations thrive. Others speak of vast tunnels stretching across continents, connecting hidden cities like a secret highway beneath our feet. In these stories, beings from inside occasionally emerge, sometimes described as giants, sometimes as pale, subterranean humans, sometimes even as reptilian entities whose influence stretches into our governments and institutions, whether literal or symbolic. The idea that they walk among us gains a strange resonance when tied to the hollow Earth during World War II. Legends emerged of secret Nazi expeditions to Antarctica, seeking entrances to the hollow Earth. According to fringe theories, they established hidden bases and made contact with advanced beings inside, trading technology and knowledge. After the war, whispers claimed that certain Nazi scientists brought to America under Operation Paperclip had carried more than rockets with them. They carried secrets of what lies below. Mainstream history does not support these claims, but conspiracy thrives on the gaps, the lost files, the coincidences that pile up until they no longer feel coincidental. Even in the modern age, the hollow Earth refuses to die. Online forums are filled with maps, supposed eyewitness accounts, and grainy photos of vast caverns that look too large to be natural. Explorers tell stories of stumbling into caves where the air was unnaturally warm, where compasses spun, where sounds echoed in ways that defied physics. The Earth beneath us is not empty. We know of vast cave systems that stretch for miles, labyrinths still unmapped. If such places can exist without our full knowledge, is it so hard to imagine that greater secrets lie deeper still? And then there is the psychological allure. The surface world is messy, crowded, filled with conflict. The idea of a hidden realm beneath, untouched and pristine, calls to something deep inside us. A promise of escape, a second chance, a refuge from the noise above. Perhaps that is why the hollow Earth theory persists. Not because of its evidence, but because of its longing. It is a map of hope disguised as a map of fear. Still, the whispers grow. Some point to modern sinkholes that swallow entire city blocks, as if the crust beneath us is thinner than we thought. Others note the booming interest in underground bunkers, as if the elite are preparing not just for war or disaster, but for a return to something older. The idea that entrances exist at the poles, beneath mountains, hidden in the ocean floor, keeps the theory alive. And every time a satellite photo is blurred, every time a research expedition disappears, every time a treaty limits exploration, the theory gains another breath. So tonight, as you rest, imagine the ground beneath your home. Picture it not as lifeless stone, but as corridors stretching into shadow, as vast caverns glowing with hidden light, as rivers flowing in directions no surface map records. Somewhere in that silence, in that vast unknown, there may be watchers. Civilizations waiting, unseen, perhaps older than ours, perhaps wiser, or perhaps hungrier. We cannot know. But the thought lingers, and it will still be there in the morning, when you feel the ground beneath your feet and wonder, just for a moment, how deep it truly goes. Asterisk, asterisk, in the heart of the Nevada desert, where the sun scorches the sand by day and the cold emptiness spreads by night, lies a stretch of land known officially as the Nevada Test and Training Range. But to the world, it carries a different name, one whispered, joked about, and feared, in equal measure. Area 51. From the moment its existence was first acknowledged by the US government, the base has been wrapped in secrecy. No-fly zones surround it. Armed patrols guard its perimeter. High-tech surveillance watches from hidden towers. To approach too closely is to risk arrest, or worse. And yet, the more it is hidden, the more fascination grows. What is so important, so dangerous, that it must be concealed in the middle of the desert, behind fences and silence? The official story says Area 51 is a testing ground for advanced aircraft. And indeed, history shows that some of the world's most secretive planes were tested there. The U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, the stealth fighters that changed warfare. The skies above Nevada have always been a canvas for innovation. But for many, this explanation is too convenient, too neat. The desert is wide. The military has countless bases. Why this place? Why this much secrecy? The legend of Area 51 truly ignited in 1947, when something crashed near Roswell, New Mexico. The official explanation, a weather balloon, was accepted by some, mocked by others, and dissected endlessly. In the years that followed, whispers connected Roswell to Nevada, suggesting the wreckage, and perhaps its occupants, were transported to Area 51 for study. Since then, countless stories have emerged of saucer-shaped craft hidden in hangars, of scientists reverse engineering alien technology to leapfrog human progress by decades. Some even claim that the rapid rise of computing, lasers, and stealth was not invention, but adaptation. Borrowed knowledge from something, not of this world. Witnesses always shadowy, always contested, speak of lights darting across the sky above the base. Objects that move too fast, turn too sharply, and glow too brightly to be ordinary aircraft. Pilots report them. Civilians capture them on shaky cameras. And while skeptics insist they are simply advanced prototypes, the sheer consistency of these reports feeds the myth. They are not testing planes, believers argue. They are testing boundaries, pushing beyond the human into something extraterrestrial. There are also stories of people who once worked inside. A man named Bob Lazar became famous in the 1980s for claiming he had been hired to reverse engineer alien spacecraft at a facility called S4, near Area 51. Lazar described sources powered by exotic reactors, capable of bending gravity itself. He spoke of hangars built into mountainsides, of scientists compartmentalized into secrecy, each knowing only a sliver of the truth. His credentials were questioned, his past scrutinized, and yet his story never quite faded. To this day, People debate whether Lazar was a fraud, a whistleblower, or perhaps something in between. Someone allowed to speak just enough to mislead, but not enough to reveal. Then there are the connections to abduction narratives. Countless people over the decades have reported being taken, experimented on, returned with missing time and haunting memories. Psychologists explain it as sleep paralysis, as the mind struggling in the twilight between dream and waking. But some experiences insist their memories are real, and that the entities who took them are connected to the same technology hidden in Nevada. Area 51, in this view, is not just a military base. It is a crossroads, a meeting point where human ambition and otherworldly presence intertwine. The cultural impact of Area 51 cannot be ignored. It has become a symbol, a shorthand for secrecy. Movies, books, and games imagine its hidden vaults. Tourists flock to the gates, to diners with alien logos, to roadside attractions filled with glowing green figures. The desert has turned conspiracy into commerce. But beneath the jokes and t-shirts, the unease remains. If Area 51 is just an airbase, why acknowledge it so reluctantly? Why only after decades of denial? Why guard its perimeter so fiercely, as if a single glimpse could unravel something immense? Satellite images fuel further speculation. Vast runways stretch into the sand, longer than most international airports. Strange markings appear and vanish. Buildings rise and fall. At night, strange lights flicker, too bright for ordinary too erratic for routine tests. Some researchers claim to have tracked unusual radiation readings near the site, spikes that suggest the testing of exotic propulsion. Others point to rumors of underground levels, vast as cities, where experiments run without the interference of daylight. And then there is the silence. The US government, so quick to comment on other matters, has always chosen its words carefully when it comes to Area 51. For years, it didn't even admit the place existed. Only in 2013, after freedom of information requests, did declassified documents finally acknowledge the base by name. For believers, this is telling. If the official narrative is always delayed, always partial, why trust it at all? Secrets breed suspicion, and suspicion, once seeded, grows roots too deep to pull out. Perhaps the strangest twist is how the legend has evolved. Once, Area 51 was said to hold wrecked saucers and alien bodies. Now, some argue the truth is subtler. Not relics from crashes, but ongoing contact. Agreements, even. The idea that technology is traded for access, that treaties exist not between nations, but between species. Outlandish, maybe, but every outlandish idea begins as an unspoken fear, and fears, like the desert night, stretch endlessly. Tonight, as you lie still, imagine the desert under the stars. The radar dish is silent, the fence is cold, the air sharp and dry. Beyond those gates, behind those walls, something waits. Perhaps only aircraft, perhaps much more. The truth is locked away, guarded not just by soldiers, but by the power of disbelief. To most, Area 51 is a punchline. To some, it is proof. To you, it is simply a thought, carried softly into the night. Asterisk, there is a stretch of ocean in the western Atlantic where compasses falter. Radios go silent, and ships vanish without a trace. It lies between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, a rough triangle on the map that sailors and pilots have whispered about for generations. The Bermuda Triangle, at first glance, The waters seem ordinary, bright blue, glittering in the sun, waves rising and falling like anywhere else. But for centuries, reports have told of strange disappearances, sudden storms, and ghostly silences. In this region, Columbus himself, during his 1492 voyage, recorded strange compass readings as he sailed near Bermuda. His men claimed to see lights flickering on the horizon, glowing where no land should be. That was the beginning of the Triangle's legend, long before the name existed. One of the most enduring mysteries tied to the Bermuda Triangle is Flight 19. In December of 1945, 5 Navy bombers on a training mission took off from Florida, only to vanish over the ocean. Their last transmissions revealed confusion. Pilots saying their compasses had gone wild, that they couldn't tell which direction was west, east, or home. Their voices grew frantic, then silent. Rescue planes were dispatched, one of which also disappeared, never to return. Not a single trace of wreckage from Flight 19 was ever found. Dozens of men gone in a single evening. Stories like this have accumulated for centuries. Ships that left port and were never seen again. Vessels found adrift, their crews missing, meals left uneaten, logbooks unfinished. One of the most famous is the Carol A. Deering, discovered in 1921. Sails set, kitchen prepared, but not a soul aboard. It was as if the crew had simply stepped off into the sea without reason. To some, these stories are tragedies of navigation and weather. To others, they are signs of something stranger. Portals, anomalies, windows into worlds beyond. Scientists have offered explanations. Sudden storms, rogue waves that can rise higher than buildings, magnetic anomalies that confuse compasses, and powerful currents that sweep wreckage far from its last known position. These answers are rational, even comforting, but they do not explain the consistency of the reports, the eerie similarity in stories separated by decades. Always compasses failing, always disorientation, always silence where there should be sound. For conspiracy theorists, the Bermuda Triangle is not just dangerous water, it is a gateway. Some believe it hides an entrance to the hollow earth, a tunnel to vast inner oceans. Others suggest it is the site of alien activity, ships and planes taken not by storms but by beings watching from the deep. A few connect it to the lost city of Atlantis, its ancient technology still alive beneath the waves, radiating strange energy fields that bend time and space. There are even accounts of survivors who claim to have glimpsed something impossible. A pilot once described flying into a strange cloud where the air seemed thick, heavy, as if pushing against his plane. Inside, lightning flickered silently, forming tunnels of light. When he emerged, his instruments showed he had traveled hundreds of miles in minutes, time itself seemingly stretched or compressed. Was it a natural phenomenon, or had he brushed against a hidden force that swallows others whole? In the 20th century, radar and radio became standard, yet the Triangle's mysteries persisted. Signals fade, transmissions cut off, aircraft vanish from screens in an instant. Search crews comb vast areas and find nothing. Oceanographers remind us the sea is deep, and wreckage can sink far beyond reach. But believers argue that not all can be chalked up to chance. Too many vanishes, too many missing crews, too many stories that echo the same refrain: confusion, fear, and then silence. The allure of the Bermuda Triangle lies not just in its mysteries, but in its persistence. Technology improves, maps grow sharper, yet the questions remain. What kind of place can swallow ships and planes without leaving debris? What kind of force bends compasses, twists the sky, and opens clouds into tunnels of light? Some scientists suggest methane hydrates beneath the seafloor could erupt, destabilizing ships by reducing water density. Others propose unique weather patterns, sudden waterspouts, violent but invisible squalls. Logical answers? Yes. But none explain why so many who pass through feel an immediate dread, as though watched by something unseen. Even now, with satellites tracking every corner of the ocean, disappearances continue. Less frequent, perhaps, but never gone. The ocean guards its secrets well. Beneath the waves lies darkness deeper than any cave, pressure stronger than any storm. If there were gateways, rifts, or ruins waiting below, would we even be able to know? Or would we, like so many before, vanish into silence, leaving nothing but another story to join the triangle's long history? So tonight, as you imagine the waves, picture the vast emptiness of the Atlantic. Picture a ship gliding smoothly, its crew unaware of the shadowed line they are crossing. A compass needle trembles, a storm builds without warning, radios fill with static. And then, nothing. Just the endless sea, calm once more, holding its secret tightly. The Bermuda Triangle endures because it never speaks. It only swallows and waits. Asterisk, asterisk. What if everything you see, everything you hear, everything you touch is not real? Not in the sense that it doesn't exist, but in the sense that it is. Programmed, a design, a construct. This is the unsettling core of the simulation theory. The idea that our entire reality is not the product of nature or chance, but the result of an immense, unfathomable simulation. The idea sounds modern, tied to computers and virtual reality, but its roots stretch far back into human thought. Philosophers have asked for centuries whether what we perceive is the truth, or just shadows on the wall of a cave. Plato imagined prisoners chained in darkness, mistaking flickering shadows for reality. René Descartes wondered whether an evil demon could be deceiving our senses. What has changed is not the question, but the language. Today, the demon is replaced by machines, the cave by code, the shadows by pixels. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed a thought experiment that sharpened the idea. He argued that if civilizations ever reach a level advanced enough to simulate reality, and if they run such simulations in large numbers, then the odds are overwhelming that we ourselves are inside one. After all, if there is one real universe but billions of simulated ones, statistically, where are we most likely to be? The unsettling answer, not in the original evidence, or at least the suggestion of it, is everywhere for those who look. The fine-tuning of physical constants, gravity, the speed of light, the delicate balance of forces is so precise that even small deviations would make life impossible. To some, this is proof of design, whether divine or digital. Others point to the bizarre discoveries of quantum physics, where particles behave like code, collapsing only when observed, as if the universe waits for input before rendering the output. Reality, in this view, is less like a solid machine and more like a video game, conserving resources by showing only what the player sees. Then there are the glitches. Stories of Darcia Vu, where moments repeat as if the program hiccuped. Accounts of objects vanishing or reappearing, of strange coincidences piling up like errors in a script. Skeptics dismiss these as tricks of memory or psychology. Believers whisper that they are glimpses of the code beneath the surface. A simulation cannot be perfect. It will always reveal itself in small cracks, brief flashes, anomalies too strange to ignore. The cultural imagination has embraced the simulation. Theory, films, books, and shows have painted worlds where humans live inside illusions, never knowing their true state. Some imagine machines enslaving us. Others picture our descendants, running ancestor simulations to study their past. Still others wonder if we are entertainment, characters in a grand game played by entities beyond comprehension. If so, what role are you playing tonight? Listener, sleeper, observer in a story already written. Skeptics argue that the theory is unfalsifiable. How can you prove or disprove a simulation from inside it? Every piece of evidence can be explained away as part of the program. Every doubt becomes a feature, not a flaw. Yet some scientists suggest tests searching for limits in cosmic rays, as if reality were rendered in pixels too small to notice. Looking for shortcuts in physics, artifacts of coding hidden in equations. If the universe is a simulation, perhaps it leaves fingerprints, like digital watermarks in a photograph. Perhaps one day we will find them, but then comes the darker question. If we are simulated, who built it? Why? Some imagine benevolent creators running countless worlds in the pursuit of knowledge. Others see indifferent programmers letting their simulations run with no concern for suffering inside. And some fear that the purpose is crueler, that we are experiments, or entertainment, or batteries feeding a greater machine. And if we ever learn the truth, would the simulation simply be shut down, reset, or deleted? For most, the simulation theory is not a daily worry, but a late-night thought. A whisper when the world feels too strange, too neat, or too cruel to be chance. It is the thought that keeps you awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering whether the ceiling itself is real, whether your memories are yours, or data written into a character's backstory, whether your dreams are your own, or just subroutines playing out while the system updates. And yet, the theory also brings a strange comfort. If reality is simulated, then nothing is permanent. Pain, loss, even death may be only temporary states. In a program larger than we can see, the world becomes a story, and you are a character. Free, perhaps, to play your role as you choose, but also guided by lines of code you cannot read. In this view, meaning is not diminished, but amplified. You are not random, you are written. So as you close your eyes, let the thought drift. Imagine the world as a great machine, lines of code humming beneath the surface, pixels flickering into being with every glance. Imagine the glitches as reminders that the story is not complete, that somewhere outside the screen, something greater watches. And as you fall deeper into rest, remember, whether real or simulated, the night is yours, the dreams are yours, and the mystery endures. Asterisk, asterisk, it begins with a memory, clear, vivid, undeniable, and yet wrong. Millions of people around the world remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s. They recall news reports, televised funerals, the world mourning the loss of a revolutionary figure. But history records something else. Mandela lived, was released, and went on to become president of South Africa before passing away in 2013. How could so many people share the same false memory? This puzzle became known as the Mandela effect. At first, it seemed like an odd curiosity, a trick of human memory. But the more examples surfaced, the stranger it became. People swore that in their childhoods, the popular book series was called The Berenstein Bears, spelled with Ein, not Berenstain with Ain. Movie lovers quoted Darth Vader as saying, "Luke, I am your father," only to discover the actual line was, "No, I am your father." Others remembered the Monopoly Man having a monocle. He does not. Pikachu's tail with a black tip. It never existed. The list goes on, small details that people are certain they experienced, only to find the world disagrees. Skeptics explain this as the quirks of human memory. The brain, after all, is not a recording device, but a storyteller, filling gaps with patterns and assumptions. We misremember logos, lines, and spellings because our minds favor simplicity, or because cultural repetition warps the original. In this view, the Mandela effect is a collective error, a fascinating glimpse into the flaws of perception. But for believers, it is something much more profound. It is evidence that reality itself has shifted. The theory suggests that the Mandela effect is the result of parallel universes colliding, timelines shifting, and small details changing as we move between realities. Imagine a vast multiverse, infinite versions of Earth branching with every decision, every quantum possibility. If two of these timelines merged, most events would align. History would appear consistent, but small differences would survive fragments of another reality bleeding through. That is what the Mandela effect represents. The scars of universes colliding, the echoes of lives that were real somewhere, remembered here, but erased in this version of the world. Some theorists connect the Mandela effect to experiments in high energy physics. They point to CERN, home of the Large Hadron Collider, as the trigger. When scientists smashed particles together at near-light speeds, they may have nudged reality itself, causing small fractures in the fabric of existence. Each collision, a tiny earthquake rippling through dimensions, leaving us in a world almost identical to the one before, but not quite. A different spelling, a missing monocle, a flag remembered at half-mast that never was. Others see the hand of deliberate manipulation. If reality is a simulation, then the Mandela effect could be the bugs, the glitches, or even the edits. Someone, or something, adjusting the code, rewriting history in subtle ways, either to test human perception or to align the world with a new narrative. In this view, the inconsistencies are not accidents. They are breadcrumbs, clues left for those awake enough to notice. Every misremembered logo, every altered line, a signal that the curtain is thin and the stage is being rebuilt. The unsettling part is how personal the Mandela effect feels. These are not distant mysteries like UFOs or lost cities. They are memories we hold in our own minds, moments we are certain about, contradicted by the evidence of the present. To experience it is to doubt not just the world, but yourself. Did you imagine it? Did you dream it? Or did you live it in another place, another version of this story? The Mandela effect turns reality into quicksand. The harder you try to stand firm, the more uncertain the ground feels beneath your feet. Communities online have catalogued thousands of examples. People argue passionately, posting old VHS tapes, photographs, advertisements. Sometimes they uncover evidence of both spellings, both versions, as if two realities overlap. Other times, nothing is found, and the disagreement remains a scar, a reminder of how fragile memory is, or how fragile reality itself might be. And always the question follows: if these details can change, What else could shift? What larger events, what histories might already have been rewritten without our noticing? For some, the Mandela effect is terrifying. It suggests we cannot trust even our own memories, that the past is not fixed but fluid. For others, it is liberating. It suggests the universe is larger, stranger, and more malleable than we were taught. That we are not bound by a single thread of time, but drifting through a tapestry of possibilities, waking each day in a world just slightly different than the one before. So as you lie here, let your mind wander. Think of the small details in your own life, the street you grew up on, the color of a childhood toy, the lyrics to a song you once sang. What if they are not quite as you remember? What if, in another version of the world, they are exactly as you recall, but you are no longer there? Perhaps tonight, as you drift into dreams, you will slip between realities once more. And in the morning, something small will feel different. Not enough to prove, just enough to notice. Just enough to remind you that memory, reality, and illusion may be the same thread, woven in ways we cannot yet see. Asterisk, asterisk, time travel. Few ideas have captured the imagination of humanity as deeply as the thought of moving through time, stepping backward into the past, or forward into futures not yet written. For centuries, it has been the realm of myth and fiction, but some believe it is far more than fantasy. To them, time travel is not only possible, it may already be happening. Quietly, in ways we barely notice, legends of time anomalies appear throughout history. Ancient texts describe individuals who vanished and reappeared years later, unchanged, confused, unable to explain where they had been. Folktales tell of travelers stumbling into strange places where time flowed differently, where a single night equaled a century outside. These could be dismissed as allegories, warnings about the flow of life, metaphors for dreams. Yet they echo across cultures that never touched, suggesting something more than coincidence. In the modern age, stories of time travelers have only multiplied. One of the most famous is the tale of John Titor. In 2000, an anonymous poster appeared on internet forums claiming to be a soldier from the year 2036. He described a bleak future shaped by war, division, and the collapse of infrastructure. He spoke casually of the limitations of his time machine, of how it worked using gravitational distortions, of the rules he had to follow to avoid altering events too drastically. Skeptics laughed, but some details he shared seemed eerily prescient. Predictions of growing global unrest, of technological advances that arrived years later. Even when he was wrong, his tone, his specificity, made people wonder. Was John Titor a prankster with a vivid imagination, or a traveler who had simply landed in a timeline not identical to his own? Other cases are more visual. Photographs surface now and then that appear to show impossible figures out of place. A man in 1940s Canada, wearing clothes that look too modern, sunglasses and a logoed shirt decades before their time. Crowds gathered in old black and white photos, where one face looks suspiciously like a celebrity who should not have been alive yet. Skeptics argue these are misinterpretations, coincidences of fashion and angle. But for those who believe, these are breadcrumbs left by travelers who cannot fully hide their presence. Then there are the stories tied to government experiments, whispers of secret projects. The Philadelphia experiment, the Montauk Project, describe not just teleportation, but slips in time itself. Ships vanishing from one port and appearing in another. Soldiers sent not just across space, but across years. If even fragments of these accounts are true, then the line between science fiction and classified technology is thinner than we imagine. Science itself does not rule it out. Einstein's theory of relativity allows for time dilation, the stretching of time at near-light speeds. Astronauts traveling fast enough age more slowly than those left behind. This is not speculation. It has been measured. On satellites, on precise atomic clocks, the effect is real. The challenge is scale. How do you move not seconds or minutes, but years, decades, centuries? Theoretical physics speaks of wormholes, of closed time-like curves, of cosmic strings, all exotic structures that, in theory, could bend time into loops. If the universe permits them, then time is not a straight line but a landscape, and landscapes can be crossed. The real question is not whether time travel is possible, but whether it is already happening. If travelers move among us, would we even know? Some argue that history itself is proof. The so-called Mandela effect, memories of a past that doesn't match the present, could be the fingerprints of travelers altering small details. Each change ripples outward, rewriting records, but leaving behind traces in our minds. Others point to sudden leaps in technology, the microchip, the laser, the internet, as advances too abrupt to be natural. Perhaps gifts or leaks from futures far ahead of us. There are even more chilling theories. What if UFOs are not aliens at all, but time travelers from our own future? Their strange appearances, their sudden vanishings, could be the result of machines moving not just through space, but across the centuries. Their humanoid forms, so similar yet so different, could be us, evolved, adapted, watching our past for reasons unknown. Some say they study us, some say they warn us, some say they manipulate events to ensure their own existence. If so, then the watchers in the sky are not visitors from far away, but echoes of ourselves. Looping back to the beginning, of course, skeptics remain firm. They argue that if time travelers existed, we would have undeniable proof. We would see them, meet them, hear their voices. But what if the rules prevent it? What if the act of revealing themselves destroys the path they came from, erasing their existence? In that case, discretion would not be choice, it would be survival. Time travel would demand secrecy, because exposure is paradox. And then there are the accidents. Stories circulate of people who seemed to step out of their own era by mistake. A man in 1950 found wandering New York streets, dressed in outdated clothes, carrying coins minted decades before. He spoke of a city that matched no records, then vanished from a secure cell as suddenly as he appeared. Another tale tells of a couple driving through rural France in the 1970s, who stopped at an inn that looked old-fashioned but comfortable. They paid with cash, ate a meal, and slept. In the morning, the inn was gone, replaced by empty fields. Their receipts, photographs, even the coins in their pockets matched no known currency. Are these stories hoaxes, misremembered dreams, or slips, accidents of the timeline, when the seams of reality briefly misalign? Perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that time travel is common, but carefully managed. If advanced civilizations, even future versions of humanity, have mastered time, then what we call history may not be fixed at all. It may be curated, adjusted, sculpted to produce the present we know. Wars ending differently, leaders chosen or removed, inventions delayed or accelerated, all of it guided by hands we cannot see. If true, then free will itself is an illusion. We are living in a version of the story that was allowed, not the one that might have been. But there is another possibility. What if travelers are not rare? What if each of us has felt the ripple without realizing it? That moment when the world feels slightly off, when the air seems heavier, when a detail in a familiar room looks wrong, as if replaced. What if those are not tricks of the mind, but the shadows of travelers brushing past us, nudging the flow of time just enough to stay? Hidden, as you close your eyes, imagine the sound of footsteps in an empty street. A figure passes you, glances once, then is gone. Later, you wonder, did you see their face? Was it familiar? Did they seem out of place? Time travel may not come with fanfare or flashing lights. It may come quietly, in subtle edits, in missing hours, in the sense that yesterday is not exactly where you left it, and if, one night, you dream of standing in another century, a lantern-lit street, a futuristic city glowing with towers of glass, perhaps it is not a dream at all. Perhaps it is a glimpse, a memory carried across time, a reminder that time is not a wall but a corridor, and that corridor is filled with doors, some locked, some open, some waiting for you to notice them. Asterisk on the border of Switzerland and France, buried deep beneath rolling hills and quiet villages, lies one of the most ambitious machines humanity has ever built, the Large Hadron Collider, or LHC. It is a ring 17 miles long, a tunnel filled with magnets colder than space, built to smash particles together at near the speed of light. Officially, its purpose is scientific, to peer into the smallest building blocks of matter, to understand how the universe was born. But since the day it was first switched on, whispers have followed it. Whispers of dangers, of dimensions, of realities shifting without our notice. The most famous discovery at CERN was the Higgs boson, often called the God particle, a name physicists dislike but which the public embraced. The Higgs is responsible, in theory, for giving mass to matter. Without it, the universe as we know it would not exist. Finding it was a triumph of modern science. But for conspiracy theorists, it was also a moment of dread. They argue that smashing particles at such energies could do more than reveal truths. It could change them. Each collision, they warn, is not just an experiment. It is a key turning in a lock we were never meant to touch. Some fear the creation of micro black holes. Physicists admit that, in theory, the collider could produce them, though they insist they would evaporate instantly, too small to matter. Yet skeptics ask, what if they don't? What if a black hole is born that does not vanish, but grows, quietly consuming matter, unseen until it is too late? Could our world already be inside one, slowly collapsing without us realizing? The thought lingers, unsettling, impossible to prove, impossible to disprove. Others point to the Mandela effect, tying it directly to CERN. They suggest that in 2012, when the Higgs boson was confirmed, reality itself shifted. Small details changed. Logos, lines, names, events, all slightly off, as if we were nudged from one version of the universe to another. Was it coincidence that reports of the Mandela effect surged in the years after 2012? Or was it a symptom, evidence that our world had been rewritten at the atomic level? Perhaps each collision in the collider spawns not only particles, but new branches of reality, with our consciousness slipping between them, noticing only the cracks left behind. There are darker theories still. Some whisper that CERN is not just science, but ritual. The collider's circular shape, its vast underground chambers, its immense power, all are seen as modern equivalents of ancient temples. Outside the facility stands a statue of Shiva, the Hindu god of destruction and creation, dancing in a ring of fire. To believers, this is not decoration, but symbolism. The collider, they argue, is not just probing the universe, it is summoning, calling forth forces beyond human control, tearing open doors to dimensions that bleed into ours. Strange creatures, shadowy figures, entities glimpsed at the edge of vision. Could they be leaks, intrusions from worlds that were never meant to meet ours? Employees at CERN dismiss these ideas, but rumors persist. Workers have reported unusual feelings near the collider, dizziness, sudden waves of dread, or the uncanny sensation of being watched. In 2016, a video surfaced online showing what appeared to be a ritual at CERN's grounds. Hooded figures circling the Shiva statue, a stage sacrifice unfolding in the dark. Officials called it a prank, a joke among staff, but for many, it was confirmation that something stranger hides beneath the science. And then there is the question of purpose. Why build such a machine? Why spend billions to smash particles that most people cannot even name? The official answer is knowledge, pure and simple, but theorists suspect more. Some say the collider is designed to open portals, gateways to parallel universes. If energy is matter and matter is reality, then perhaps enough energy focused in the right way can puncture the veil. If so, what has already slipped through? What has already slipped out? Another layer of suspicion comes from secrecy. Though much of CERN's work is public, its sheer complexity means that only a tiny fraction of humanity truly understands it. For the rest, it is a black box. Experiments run underground, far from sight, with results handed down like proclamations. What if, in those hidden labs, something unexpected has already happened? A discovery too dangerous to share, too world-altering to reveal. The public would never know. We would only feel it in subtle changes, in shifting memories, in the uneasy sense that reality no longer fits quite right. Quantum physics itself feeds the paranoia. At the smallest scales, particles behave like waves, existing in multiple states until observed. They flicker in and out of being, vanish and reappear. It is a world of probability, not certainty. If reality is that unstable at its foundation, then what happens when you push it? What happens when you force collisions billions of times more powerful than natural processes? Could we not just observe reality, but break it, rewrite it? And if the universe is a simulation, as some believe, then CERN may not be studying the code. It may be hacking it. Each collision a keystroke, each discovery a patch note, each new particle a line of code revealed. If so, then the glitches we experience, the Mandela effects, the Darcy of Us, the impossible coincidences, are not accidents. They are updates, changes to the program bleeding into our perception. CERN, in this theory, is not a laboratory but a console. Its scientists, not explorers, but players, pressing buttons they do not fully understand. Consider, too, the strange symbols found in some of CERN's documents, the cryptic phrases that surface in unofficial leaks. Some claim that files reference dimensions, hidden constants, even entities. Others dismiss these as hoaxes, but the seed is planted. When combined with images of hooded rituals and statues of gods, the impression deepens. Perhaps CERN is not only science. Perhaps it is faith in disguise, a modern priesthood cloaked in physics, channeling powers older than civilization itself. Still, Not every theory paints CERN as dangerous. Some see it as the dawn of a new age. If the collider does open portals, perhaps they lead not to chaos, but to knowledge. Civilizations beyond ours, technologies unimaginable, truths about existence that could free us from the prison of ignorance. But even here, the fear remains. For knowledge can liberate or destroy. And history shows that humanity rarely holds power without consequence. So tonight, imagine the collider humming deep underground. Magnets colder than stars guiding streams of particles on endless loops. Imagine them colliding, bursting into fragments smaller than thought, releasing energies unseen since the birth of the cosmos. Somewhere, a detector records the trace. Somewhere else, a door opens a fraction wider. The world above remains calm. Children sleep, cars pass on dark roads, the night carries on. But below, in the hidden ring of fire, reality trembles, shifts, adjusts. Perhaps you feel it. Perhaps you don't. Either way, the collisions continue. And as you drift deeper into rest, consider this. If you awaken tomorrow and something feels slightly different, a word, a memory, a detail you cannot place, maybe it is not your mind playing tricks. Maybe it is the world itself. Maybe you crossed into a new version while you slept, nudged by the humming of a machine beneath the earth, by collisions that light up the dark with sparks of creation. Maybe tonight is the night everything changed, and no one will ever know. Asterisk. In the 1990s, a Canadian journalist named Serge Monist published writings that would ripple across conspiracy circles for decades. He claimed to have uncovered a secret plan by global elites, a project so ambitious and unsettling that, if true, it would redefine the very foundations of reality and belief. He called it Project Bluebeam. At its heart, the theory suggests that governments, working hand in hand with hidden organizations, are preparing to stage nothing less than the end of the world, not through destruction, but through deception. According to Monist, Blue Beam would unfold in several phases. The first, the breakdown of all archaeological knowledge. He claimed that new discoveries would be planted, engineered to discredit traditional religions and rewrite human history. Ancient artifacts revealed as fakes, documents emerging to undermine long-held beliefs, all designed to prepare people for a new narrative. If you shake faith in the past, you can control faith in the future. The second phase was the most infamous, a massive, global light show in the skies, created by holographic technology so advanced that entire populations would believe they were witnessing divine visions. Imagine looking up at night and seeing your savior, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, appearing above the clouds, speaking in your own language, promising guidance and unity. For Christians, a Messiah. For Muslims, the Mahdi. For Hindus, an avatar. Each culture would see what it most expects, tailored illusions crafted to exploit belief. Then, as the lights converged, the visions would merge into one figure, revealing that all faiths were the same, pointing toward a single truth. A staged revelation meant to dismantle religions and replace them with a unified, manufactured spirituality. The third phase, Monist wrote, would involve artificial telepathy. Signals beamed directly into human brains through satellites and hidden transmitters. These voices would not be heard aloud, but inside the mind, indistinguishable from one's own thoughts. Imagine believing God is speaking directly to you, guiding you, comforting you, commanding you. But in truth, it would be machines, algorithms, words written by men, broadcast into skulls as if from heaven. In such a world, belief would no longer be a choice. It would be programmed. The fourth and final stage would be the unveiling of a new world order. A government not elected, but accepted, because people would believe it was divinely ordained. Chaos would give way to control. Wars would end not through peace, but through unification under a single authority. Humanity would kneel not to gods, but to images of gods created by technology. And behind the curtain, those who controlled the machines would control everything. At first glance, Blue Beam sounds like science fiction, an ambitious screenplay mixing holograms, satellites, and psychological warfare. Yet for believers, it gains power from how much of it seems possible today. When Monist first wrote of giant holograms projected into the sky, it seemed impossible, but in recent years, we have seen concerts where dead musicians perform as holograms. We have seen drones form glowing patterns above cities, creating spectacles visible for miles. We have seen advances in deepfake technology so realistic that faces and voices can be faked in real time. If illusions of this scale are possible for entertainment, what might be possible with military budgets and classified research? The telepathic phase also seems less absurd than it once did. Neuroscience has advanced rapidly with experiments, showing thoughts being transmitted between brains using brain-computer interfaces. Devices can already detect patterns of activity linked to simple words, images, and commands. If technology like this exists in laboratories, how much more advanced could classified versions be? Could satellites already be capable of broadcasting not sound, but thought? And then there is the timing. Monest believed Blue Beam would be triggered during a moment of global instability, when fear and uncertainty made populations more vulnerable to manipulation. Wars, pandemics, economic collapse. These are not rare in human history, but imagine them converging. Imagine the world desperate for hope, desperate for a savior. That is when the sky lights up. That is when the voices arrive. That is when the stage is set. Critics, of course, dismiss Blue Beam as paranoia, pointing out that no evidence has ever emerged to confirm it. Monist himself died suddenly in 1996, reportedly of a heart attack, fueling suspicion among his followers that he was silenced. Others argue he wove together existing fears about religion, about technology, about globalization into a single dramatic story. Whether fact or fiction, the effect was the same. The seed was planted. Today, every time strange lights appear in the sky, every time a new technology emerges that blurs reality, the whispers return. Blue beam, blue beam, blue beam. Some connect the theory to UFO phenomena. What if many sightings are not alien craft, but projections, tests of the system, rehearsals for the final act? Others tie it to ancient prophecies, suggesting blue beam is the fulfillment of warnings about false messiahs and deceptive signs. And some fold it into the simulation theory, claiming Blue Beam is not even a physical project, but an update to the code of reality itself, rewriting belief at the most primal level. Regardless of belief, the haunting question remains: how would we know? If an image filled the sky tomorrow, brighter than the moon, speaking words that stirred your soul, would you believe it? Would you kneel? Would you dismiss it as illusion? Or would the sheer power of the spectacle overwhelm doubt? Humans are creatures of sight, of sound, of feeling, and Project Bluebeam, if it exists, would not attack armies or governments. It would attack the mind. So tonight, as you lie in darkness, Imagine the sky above you filling with light, shapes forming, voices calling, visions too vast to ignore. Imagine neighbors falling to their knees, friends calling in awe, leaders announcing unity. Would you resist? Or would you wonder, even for a moment, if what you were seeing was true? That hesitation, that crack in certainty, is all it would take. Project Bluebeam endures not because it has been proven, but because it could be. The pieces exist. The technology advances year by year. And if one day the stars shift and gods descend from glowing clouds, you may not know whether it is heaven or hologram, but you will remember this story, and you will know that even the sky can lie.